What if one of humanity's greatest achievements was nothing more than an elaborate hoax? The Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969 is celebrated as a defining moment in history, a testament to human ingenuity. But for decades, skeptics have questioned its legitimacy. Could it have all been staged? In this video, we'll explore the facts of the moon landing, the conspiracies surrounding it, and finally we'll ask artificial intelligence, what if it really was a hoax? To fully understand the moon landing conspiracy, we need to start with the facts. On July 20th, 1969, the world watched as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon, while Michael Collins orbited above in the command module. Apollo 11 was the culmination of NASA's Apollo program, which was initiated by President John F. Kennedy's bold promise in 1961 to put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. The mission was a success by all official accounts. Over 600 million people watched the event live on television. Armstrong's famous words,
"That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind,"
became immortalized in history. Before Apollo 11's historic journey could begin, the Saturn V rocket underwent rigorous testing at facilities like Test Stand 4670. Constructed in 1965, this massive structure ensured the rocket was ready for its momentous launch in 1969. After the monumental Saturn V launch, Apollo 11's lunar module, known as Eagle, descended toward the surface of the moon. As Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin neared the lunar surface, they encountered unexpected challenges. With only seconds of fuel remaining, Armstrong took manual control and piloted the Eagle to a safe landing on the Sea of Tranquility. The world held its breath as the historic moment finally arrived.
Shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30-second forward drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
We're going to be busy for a minute. 11, this is Hornet, over.
With the Eagle safely back aboard the command module, Apollo 11 began its journey home, completing its mission with a successful splashdown in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969. The success of Apollo 11 was not just a triumph for NASA or the United States, but for all of humanity. Over 600 million people around the world tuned in to witness this historic moment, united by hope and wonder. Families gathered around televisions, and even world leaders offered their congratulations. Public figures, from presidents to poets, celebrated this giant leap for mankind, reminding us all of what can be achieved when we dare to dream. The bravery of Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins inspired millions, and the spirit of Apollo 11 became a symbol of unity, curiosity, and human potential. But not everyone believed the official story. Almost immediately after the landing, whispers of doubt began to spread. Why? Why did some people question humanity's greatest achievement? Was it too perfect? Too ambitious? Or were there clues that suggested something wasn't quite right?
Pretty under. Beautiful view.
The moon landing conspiracy theory gained momentum in the 1970s, with skeptics claiming that the entire event was an elaborate hoax orchestrated by the US government. Here's why. Conspiracy theorists often point to this footage, claiming the movement of the flag proves it couldn't have been filmed on the moon. After all, there's no wind in the vacuum of space, so how could the flag wave? NASA explained this, stating the flag was rigged with a horizontal rod to keep it extended, and that its rippling effect was due to the astronauts twisting the pole. Skeptics point to inconsistent shadows in moon landing photos, suggesting multiple light sources, like those in a studio, rather than the sun. NASA countered this, explaining that uneven terrain and wide-angle lenses can create these effects. This is the Earth, and these blue lines show its vast magnetic field. Our planet is nestled in the center of two immense regions of powerful radiation, the Van Allen belts, which trap high-energy particles from the sun, but they can't hang on to all of them. In a study, scientists have observed how these particles can rain down out of the belts, which is vital information to protect satellites and astronauts in space. NASA responded that the spacecraft's trajectory minimized exposure, and the aluminum shielding provided sufficient protection. Many point out that stars are absent from the moon landing photos. NASA clarified that the camera exposure settings, designed to capture the bright lunar surface, rendered stars too dim to appear. A popular theory suggests filmmaker Stanley Kubrick, known for 2001, A Space Odyssey movie, was hired to direct the fake moon landing. Evidence for this claim is circumstantial at best, largely based on Kubrick's mastery of special effects. Some argue that slow-motion techniques and wires were used to simulate low gravity on a film set. Others question why we haven't returned to the moon with modern technology. Despite NASA's explanations, these arguments continued to fuel skepticism. So why would the US government fake such a monumental event? During the Cold War, the United States was in fierce competition with the Soviet Union. The moon landing was seen as a way to assert dominance.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? Why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon.
Some theorists suggest that NASA needed a successful mission to justify its enormous budget and secure future funding. Another claim is that the moon landing was a distraction from political scandals or unpopular wars. If the moon landing were a hoax, it would represent one of the largest and most successful disinformation campaigns in history. The coordination required would involve tens of thousands of NASA employees, contractors, and international observers, a feat that seems improbable given the tendency. However, if it were true, the implications would be profound. It would fundamentally erode trust in institutions and scientific achievements. It would suggest that humanity's ability to discern truth is deeply flawed. From a technological standpoint, the resources required to fabricate such an event in 1969 would rival those required to achieve the moon landing itself. For instance, replicating the lighting and gravity effects convincingly would be nearly impossible with 1960s filmmaking technology. But what if modern AI were tasked with uncovering such a hoax? Could it do so? Modern artificial intelligence could analyze discrepancies in footage, test the physics of moon landing simulations, and assess the authenticity of materials. However, absent new evidence, current data overwhelmingly supports the conclusion that the moon landing occurred. Whether you believe the moon landing was real or not, the debate reveals more about our society than it does about the event itself. From a rational and evidence-based perspective, the moon landing being faked seems highly unlikely. Here's why. There's overwhelming scientific data from the Apollo missions. Moon rocks, analyzed independently worldwide, laser reflectors placed on the moon, still used today, and detailed telemetry data. Independent tracking stations worldwide, including rival countries like the Soviet Union, confirmed the Apollo 11 trajectory and landing. Faking the moon landing would have required coordination among thousands of NASA employees, contractors, scientists, and global observers. Maintaining such a large-scale conspiracy without leaks seems implausible. Filming convincing fake moon footage in 1969, with the available technology, replicating low gravity, vast lunar landscapes, and the lighting conditions, would have been nearly impossible. If exposed, a hoax would have been catastrophic for U.S. credibility during the Cold War. The stakes were too high to risk such a deception. While Kubrick was an innovative filmmaker, even his groundbreaking work in 2001, A Space Odyssey, couldn't have perfectly replicated the moon's lighting, gravity, and terrain. After analyzing the evidence and arguments on both sides, we now turn to modern AI. Unbiased and logical to determine if the moon landing could have been a hoax.
From a purely logical and scientific standpoint, the overwhelming evidence supports that the moon landing was real. The sheer scale of the operation, requiring over 400,000 people across NASA, the US government, and private contractors, makes a coordinated hoax highly improbable. Human error and the inevitability of whistleblowers make it nearly impossible to keep a lie of this magnitude hidden for over 50 years. However, skepticism exists for a reason. The 1960s were the peak of the Cold War, and the US government had a strong motivation to demonstrate technological superiority over the Soviet Union. If the moon landing had been faked, it would have secured national pride and justified NASA funding. So let's break it down. Key arguments for the moon landing being real. Physical evidence. Moon rocks brought back have unique isotopic compositions not found on Earth. Independent verification. The Soviet Union tracked Apollo 11's journey in real time and never questioned its legitimacy. Laser reflectors. Devices left on the moon during Apollo missions still allow scientists to bounce lasers off them to measure the Earth-Moon distance. Engineering challenges of a hoax. 1960s technology lacked the capability to fake microgravity convincingly. Creating a realistic hoax would have been just as difficult as going to the moon itself. The question isn't whether the moon landing happened or not. It's why we keep questioning it. In an era of information overload, doubt is easier to cling to than truth. It feeds our curiosity, challenges our perceptions, and in many ways, fuels progress. But sometimes, the truth is simpler than the narrative we create around it.
The moon landing happened, or it didn't. But either way, the real story is what you choose to believe. What do you believe?